We are back, officially back with the socially charged, debatable, and dope. I'm talking about the Privilege Show. I have two of the illest co-hosts in the game with me today. I have my girl LaShane and our very special guest Carmen. She is a therapist. She's an amazing woman. She's an amazing beauty. She's here today. She's actually a teacher, and she's here today. She's been talking with us on how to cope during COVID-19, how to cope with therapy and things like that. So for those of you who weren't around for the first half of this episode 11, which is titled, They Say I'm Crazy, Maybe I'm Crazy, mental health, mental wellness, and coping during COVID-19. So previously we were just discussing, some of your ways and how you are suggesting using hip hop music as a form of therapy to, kind of relax some of those high tensions, emotions, and things that our culture sometimes struggles with and doesn't know how to necessarily communicate and get out with each other. So I did want to ask you, Carmen, me specifically, I struggle sometimes, and I don't like to put specific names or anything on anything that I'm going through. I give it to God and I do my own research and, figure it out some way, somehow. Great support system I have with family and friends. But my anxiety does get high at times, When I say that, it's like, I feel like sometimes I'm doing a lot of things at once, but not doing a lot, not doing enough. I feel like I'm in every place sometimes, but where I need to be. Do you consider that anxiety? Like, what's your thoughts on that? And maybe a couple of things that you think, coming from your standpoint, how it can kind of help or better my anxiety, or anyone's anxiety for that matter.
Yeah. Anxiety is one of the things that, I don't have the data on hand, but I would think it impacts, one of every 3 people, maybe 1 in every 4. And especially in a time like this, when really there is so much uncertainty really surrounding the coronavirus and shelter in place. And, we can really get in our head and really in our thoughts more than before. So oftentimes anxiety kind of presents itself as intrusive or negative thoughts. And so, I think I've seen memes where it'll be like, anxiety is like, going to sleep and then being woken up because you thought of something you did in 4th grade that was really embarrassing. And it's like, that's basically like kind of what anxiety could look like. But, it's just, where did that come from? Why am I thinking so negatively? Why am I so stressed out? Why is my heart racing? Why am I, sweating? Why am I so shaky?
Right.
So a lot of those feelings can be so damaging and so, I don't like to use the word crippling, but they could be very just affect you so much physically. So I would think maybe, like you had mentioned, you address it, you kind of give it to God. I think that that's a great thing to do. That's what I would recommend, is whatever really works for you. If it's, you recognize the thought, you recognize the negative stressor in your life, and you say, okay, I know what this is. I know I'm stressing out. I know this is anxiety. I'm really anxious. I'm really worried about something that I can't see. So what will make me calm down right now? Maybe it's telling myself an affirmation like, I am okay. I have my needs met. I have shelter. I have food. I have my family. I have my friends. Repeating those things over and over again, maybe just until you get to a place where you actually believe it. That might be something to really kind of just bring you back to the ground and grounding yourself. Because when your anxiety is high, you're almost outside of yourself. And you can't even really see that, okay, I'm living in the present right now. I'm thinking about the future. I'm thinking about the past. I'm thinking about everything but right now. So
and it's
what can you do to make yourself remember, I'm okay, this will pass? So whatever that is for you.
I like that you said that, because that has been a thing for me, is feeling like sometimes I am, like I said, a bit, it's so many moving parts, and it feels like I have to do so many things. And, I read somewhere, and I can't quite remember right now where I found the quote, but it said, when you start feeling stressed or anxious about certain things, just remember, you don't have to do shit. Excuse my language, excuse, my French for some, but you don't have to do nothing. You don't have to be doing anything per se. However, Sade decided to come on.
That's beautiful.
Randomly in the back, smooth operator. Hey, Siri, pause. That was so random and out of the blue. But what I was saying is that you really don't have to be doing anything. You know what I'm saying? And so that gives me, it calms my anxiety. I know it's deep. And I feel like this episode is a layered topic because, you know, a lot of people suffer from different mental illnesses. And, you know, LaShane, you made a great point the other day. You said you don't like to refer to it as mental illness because it's a negative connotation with that. Is that what you were trying to say?
Yeah, I was saying like I hate calling it mental illness. I prefer to say like, that I have hurdles or that someone has hurdles in their mental wellness. I think words have a lot of power, and to be struggling with certain things internally and to just label it like you're mentally ill, I think is very harmful. Um, so yeah, that's why I don't like calling it mental illness.
Your thoughts on calling it, referring to it, Carmen, as mental illness versus mental health or mental awareness? Do you feel that there's much of a difference, or do you agree that there is a negative connotation with referring to it as mental illness?
Yeah, whenever I think of the word illness, I'm actually brought back to I think it's a Malcolm X quote. It said, when we replace I with we, even illness becomes wellness.
Mm.
So we really got to move away from the I and, think about more broader community. So, this is something that's impacting you. And it could be a negative thing, but you kind of have to maybe remind yourself that you're not alone and that you're going through this with millions of other people, and you could reach out to people for support. So I say the word mental illness every now and then, but it's not something that I prefer to use. I might, just say mental health as a general term. And then when we go further, maybe in talking about disorder, even the prefix dis, that's negative. So, it's rooted in a lot of, uh, you know, words that are beyond my time, but, I try to just say mental health as a blanket, term, and then talk about, okay, what are the issues that are impacting you? So that's when you can maybe say bipolar, anxiety, depression, and so forth.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. That's good. That has me thinking. You know, I find myself on these virtual, podcast sessions that we're doing, and I look very concerned when I look at the playback. I'm looking at myself, and I'm looking like, you were really into that. You were really into that. But no, it's true. And I, again, thank you for joining us today. Um, hmm. What got you? I guess while I was listening to all of that, I would say, what got you into wanting to heal? And LaShane, I'll let you have the floor because I've been asking. But Carmen, what got you into wanting to help and heal other people and provide what your expertise to the world?
Yeah. I I kind of came into this later than I probably wanted to. I decided to go back to grad school at, I believe, 24. And I was just like, I'm going to go into counseling and I'm going to study counseling, because I realized that really what really made me feel like I had purpose and felt like I had a calling was when I was really serving others. And I was really bringing people from, you know, going from, somebody said, going from good to great.
Mm-hmm.
Allowing people to, show up as they are and work with them to get them to where they want to be. Because I've always felt like, if I had someone like, who I want to be when I was younger, then, I'd be in a better position than I am right now. But, I'm really grateful for the journey that I had. I kind of, really wasn't sure what I wanted to do until I was in my mid 20s. But, it really came down to like, who were some really pivotal people in my life that really changed my life. And it was always counselors, it was always therapists, it was always, just people who really cared about me in general.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I figured, how can I be that person to someone else?
No, that's good. Who were some of your, if you have a few names to drop, who were some of your, idols or people that you looked up to growing up?
Mm. Um, the name that, well, I won't give their name, but I
Mm-hmm.
had actually a bad experience in middle school. I had a counselor, who was not a good support system in my middle school for me. And I remember going to her for an emotional issue and she was not helpful. And I just remember, being like, wow, like I felt really crushed by that. And it stuck with me for a long time. But, as I got to be older and understand, I was like, okay, she was really burned out. Like, homegirl was overworked. So she probably was a really good counselor when she was younger in her profession, but she was probably retirement age when she got to me. So she was really mean.
Yeah.
But, I think about that experience and I think that that was a really pivotal one because it made me really see like, okay, if I'm going to be working with kids or if I'm going to be working with anybody of any age, I don't want to have them leave feeling unheard, unvalued. I really want to make sure that they feel like, okay, I got something out of this and it's a good thing. So that's one person that comes to mind. After I graduated from the program, I had some good counselors, some good mentors, good faculty, really great people that work in the profession.
Right.
And they make me want to be a better person and really check in with myself to make sure I'm serving people properly and never causing harm.
That's nice. That's great to hear. Thank you for sharing that. This is a really great episode for me, and I'm really in tune with what you're saying because, sometimes I feel like our culture, we're afraid to ask for help.
Mm-hmm.
We're afraid to say, yo, I'm a little bit down today. I'm a little bit depressed. I'm not feeling the best today. Today is not my best. I think we're so trained to say, and I know that you guys have heard it before. LaShane, we talked about it before as well. When people ask, how are you doing? Or good morning, or how's your day going? We're all just automatically trained to just say, oh, I'm great. I'm doing great. And that's not really how we're doing. We're really not doing great. But if we took a moment to just, because it almost becomes like a robot. We're just trying to just blurt it out. If we took a little bit more time, I feel, in my opinion, to say, yo, I'm not feeling the best today. It's not you, it's me. It's not you, it's pandemic. You know what I'm saying? In this case, it's pandemic. I've been having to explain it to a couple of different people. And again, thank you, Carmen. Like you've helped me put some insight and shed some light on my personal anxieties that I have with just being a creator. It's not necessarily about being scared or fearful necessarily of COVID. I do put my trust in God, and I practice staying home and being safe and clean. And we don't know where all that lies. So I can't put all that in there. So you're helping me to bring some things to perspective when it comes to COVID-19, how we're dealing with it, and how to, handle my own anxieties. It's like almost asking before you get into an argument with somebody where they say pick and choose your battles. It's kind of doing that with yourself now. Wouldn't you agree, LaShane? It's kind of almost asking yourself, okay, am I going to allow myself to be down about that all day? Am I going to allow myself to have an attitude about that? Am I going to be, I know it just irritated me, but am I going to let that ruin my whole morning? Those are conversations that I've been having with myself lately, because something could irritate us. We already, as they refer to, a hostile culture. You know what I'm saying? So we do have to check those things. And thank you again, Carmen. I got a lot to chew on and digest with that. LaShane, I'm gonna throw the ball in your court for some open conversation with Carmen, because I've been talking a lot, Carmen. So
That's fine.
Yeah, actually, I was gonna say, I agree wholeheartedly with a lot of the stuff that Carmen was saying. But even just like what I've noticed, I guess what I'm saying is what I've noticed, most people in professions that are helpful to other people, helpful and people healing, growing and ascending in their own way, it's usually because there was some lack in their upbringing or where they felt that they should have been supported and they weren't. So I always think that that's really beautiful. People look at it sometimes as a negative thing, but I think it's really awesome to say, like, I didn't have this, so I want to make sure the next person does, so that they don't have to struggle with this. And just to kind of go back to how you make it super relatable, because one thing we know is like the youth is the future. So the fact that you're focusing on this group of young, I guess, society might consider them young adults, going into this adult world, really not knowing anything, to help them start to face some of their shadow aspects, I think is really, really important. Sorry.
No, I agree with you on that. It's rough. Hip hop, just to break the, and we have some comments from our viewers that I'm going to share in a moment. Just to break a little bit of the ice, what is one hip hop song that that motivates you every day that you can look forward to? It could be old or new.
Yeah. I can't even. I kind of was preparing to be asked this question, and I was like, okay, if they ask me what song, what am I gonna say? Um, I would go back and say, stereotypically, "Keep Your Head Up" by Tupac's one of my top songs.
That's,
Um, you know,
that's a must.
I was raised on Tupac, so I would be doing my dad a disservice by not even mentioning that.
Yeah.
But it's a great song. I mean, it's timeless. It's something that I feel generations to follow will be able to connect to, regardless of what their experiences are.
Yeah.
So for me, it's like it's 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 such a good vibe and a good beat, and it always reminds me like, okay, yes, you may be going through it right now, but there will be better days ahead. So that's one of my in my back pocket type of songs. Like, okay, you feeling kind of sad today, put on some Pac and just vibe out.
Put on some Pac and put on some Pac and go.
Yeah.
Listen, what's some of your motivational tunes that you get you going?
It's funny because, so for people who don't know, Carmen is my sister cousin. So we're cousins, second cousins, and we were raised as sisters. So everybody knows, like, I don't know my dad, who's not in my life. Her father, my uncle, has always been like my dad. So it's funny because in like the 10th grade, we had to write our own eulogies and like select the song that we would want played. Keep Your Head Up was the song that I picked, and I do remember it being that moment because definitely the oddball out, and really because I'm not like his daughter, but just I'm a bit eclectic. Um, so that's definitely one of the songs I always come back to. I never knew that that was one of yours, though, Carmen. That is also good, but I have a lot of songs. I don't know if they're really hip hop per se, but I will say that I have a tendency to take what are meant to be like romantic love songs and kind of reverse it to like a universal love, like whether that's like you believe in God, whatever. I have a tendency to do that, especially when I'm needing a bit of a pick me up, like sending that love back into the universe, back into my ancestors, back into God. And so that's something that I tend to do. So all to say, there are hip hop love songs, and so I tend to do that. So I can't really pick one. But Keep Your Head Up is like that's a one that has a ton in it for me. There's a lot of history.
Yeah, it's a lot of history there, and that's a cool fact that y'all are, family. That's amazing. Lashane, that's touching. Now we're talking about mental health, because I was about to say mental illness, excuse me, mental health. Your father not being in your life growing up, and Carmen, you knowing Lashane Angora over the years, how has that been for you, Lashane? Do you think that has affected any of your mental health? Has that the absence of your father being in your life, has that played on you mentally, or more spiritually, or have you just let it just kind of pass away or put it under the rug over the years?
Um, I think it absolutely has had its effect. I don't think that I can pick one thing that it's had an effect on. I think every single thing that happens in your life shapes you. So I think once I realized that like everyone around me had a dad and I didn't. I mean, my mom had a boyfriend, um, but yeah, that's a whole nother conversation. But just kind of like, where's my dad? Definitely had an effect on me. So I think I always looked for male approval, that father figure, the kind of the stereotypical cliche of daddy issues, right? Um, it's definitely been meaningful, that I had my uncle, but there are just certain things that I wasn't taught about building relationships, even familial relationships, that I think hindered me in my ability to like open up and even like share with anybody who loved me, you know, my hard moments. And so, you know, I don't know if that has a lot necessarily to do with that's not my dad, so I don't want to overburden him. You know, he has his own kids and all of that. I think that was a part of it. Just like never wanting to be a problem is definitely something that has shaped me. And that's one of the things that I'm having to look back on over my own life, that even at that young of an age, there's still life choices that I made out of fear that really shaped my trajectory. So that's really massive. You know, there's a lot of self love going on right now because I have to be able to forgive, you know, what 5-year-old, 7-year-old, 9-year-old, 11-year-old Angora don't know nothing about nothing decided to do or not do, rather. So yeah, but it definitely has affected my mental wellness. I've suffered from depressing moods for a long period of time, anxiety, like where medication for both has been needed. Um, so yeah, I've definitely had my own journey with it.
Thank you for sharing and opening up about that, because one, it's not a necessarily easy thing, but I guess as we grow and we do find more therapy and find more therapeutic things in our lives, we are able to open up and be a little bit more vulnerable about that. And me and Lashane have known each other for quite a while. I would say a little bit less than a decade. But you know, that's something that I didn't know. And so this even makes this more powerful and this conversation more interesting. Mental wellness. Stephanie Caston on Facebook. I know I say I'm fine because of trust or lack of trust. We don't want to burden others. Also, others aren't equipped to handle the response.
That's huge. That is so huge because that's something that I've often taken personal and not realizing that sometimes the person that you have that vulnerable moment with or that you decide to have that moment with, you know, it's not always that they don't care, um, which I think takes a certain level of awareness to even be able to understand also. But yeah, it is tricky. There's a lot of balance that has to happen.
Yeah, I agree. It's deep. It's really deep. Lance Coleman, Facebook says self-love is key. Self-love is something that I didn't, it's still taking me, I'm not there yet. I mean, I feel like, you know, when they say work in progress, I feel like to me, that's the flat line of what work in progress means, is self-love. To me, I mean, my opinion, you know, because when you're not Rose, I was going to say Rose, when you're not raised to, and I'm not saying that I needed to hear that or that I would necessarily train my child to wake up every day, oh, you're a beautiful Black queen or you're a beautiful Black king and grand rising. I mean, yeah, I will, you know, and when that day comes, you know, I will empower it. But I didn't have that growing up. You know, I didn't have a, you know, you're doing great in multiple things. And that's not saying from parents per se. It's just saying I didn't know self-love was a thing as a child. How do you teach yourself, or how do you teach your child self-love from a young age? Like Lashane, even with your son Liam, he's 3 years old. How do you start from that age of teaching a child self-love, of getting them up in the mornings and saying, you're a handsome little boy? Like, what do you do? Like, what are y'all thoughts on that?
For me, I think just based on my upbringing and things like that, I think leading by example is super important. So you teach it by having it and working on it and making sure that that's a priority yourself.
Yeah.
I think that, you know, telling him that he's intelligent and smart, or that that was funny, and just being present. Like, I think you have to make people feel like they matter, like no matter what age, you
Mm-hmm.
know. And that's part of it. It's when you feel rejection, I feel like as a child, that you start to have questions about